Here is what I prefer when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons. When it comes to players having characters, I don't mind that the characters specialize in one or two areas. But there's a reason why old D&D wants there to be limitations. Because the game is really on the player. You have a few things, but not much. I'm going to put problems in front of you, and you're going to have to solve them with only those one or two options, tools, things like this. Beyond that, it's really on you. And I'm going to put you in situations where there's potential for anything to happen, where you can create the problem that you then need to solve as a player. But I want limitations. I want the game to be challenging in every way. But I mean, not just in combat. To me, combat is not the most important part of the game. It's just one part of the game. I think the overall game is, it handles itself the way it should. The challenge of, do you turn right or left? That's a challenge. Where do you go? Do you have 50 tools to tell you which way to go? All right, when you get in combat, how many pluses do you have? How many benefits do you have? And does that make you think differently? Do you approach combat differently? Do I want you to take combat more seriously? Do I want you to have limited options so you take combat more seriously, so you approach it in a more wiser, intelligent way? Of course, in a mind game, that's what I want. I don't want to give you so many tools on the character sheet, say like 5e does, where most of the game is played off the character sheet. Like the tools, the options are taking care of just about everything for you. From socializing, to fighting, to figuring out the trap. There's not much thinking you have to do with 5e, or even 3e in some cases. Old TSR D&D, it's all about the player needing to think their way through the situation. I want players more focused on role play than looking at their character sheet trying to solve every situation in front of them based on what their character can do. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with trying to solve issues with what your character can do, but if there's so many options on your character sheet, what it does is it stops you from thinking. And what happens when you're not thinking much as a player during a game? It numbs your mind out. Like, you keep doing something, you'll get really good at it. So the less you really have to think, the better you're going to get at not thinking. The better you're going to get at depending on your character sheet and the game rules. I don't want that. I want you role-playing. I want you focused on the game during gameplay, focused, being in the game instead of looking at the character sheet, constantly trying to figure out what you're going to use, what benefit you're going to get to solve your issues. You know what they say? Old school is easier for a dungeon master to run than, say, the new school, like 5e. But what's also true is, old school is easier to play if you're a player. Really, outside of the few options you might have, most of what you're doing is using your common sense. Most everything you're going to approach is through common sense. It's not a mind-breaking task that you're going to be going through the majority of the time in the game. Of course, there's going to be puzzles in that for you to run into later, but most issues you're running into a game are things you can actually figure out on your own, or, it forces you to need to talk to the other player characters. It forces you to fall back on other options that include role play when you don't have 50 options. But what you will realize is it's not that hard. Working with the group, using your common sense, that's what most everything you're going to run into requires, and you can actually bring that to the table. But in a new game like 5e, you just don't have to use that most of the time, your common sense. Most everything is going to be on the character sheet. In old school, it's just not the case. But what you'll find is you have an easier time just staying in the game and not looking at the character sheet. You'll have an easier time playing. Once you realize that's easy, you'll wonder what you're doing with your life. Like, why have I been playing 5e and not playing original TSR D&D? If you really want to know if you appreciate what tabletop role-playing games are, if you're not just one of these people here for a minute and gone, like you come in, play a game, it's easy from the get-go, you're running through every fight, winning every combat, it's just not hard. It's not hard at all, right? Maybe you like TTRPGs, but not like, it's important to you. You might be here and gone. But if you want to know if this is for you, if this is your thing, then go find a challenging game. Because if you can play that and not so easily walk through everything and still be addicted, to coming back and playing again, and once you try this, you realize that, not being able to just walk through everything isn't turning you off from the game, well, then you're meant to be here. This is a place for you. But if you're someone just here for a minute and gone, it means you're going to come in, barely be challenged at a game, barely really do anything, I guess role play, pretend that you're, in some stage play, and then you're going to take a hike, right? Well, I'm not talking to people like that. So if you think you're not like that, come prove it. Play old school. I want to be very clear. I'm not saying that I am better than you because I run old school D&D. Not at all. Potentially, maybe you're better than I am at both playing and running the game. I have no idea. That is not the case I am making here. I am saying regardless of your potential, if you've not spread your wings, I'm saying this is something you should do to test that for yourself. You know, maybe the criticism of you being a flake, maybe there's truth to that. How do you know? Right? Are you open to the idea that you might be wrong? Well, if you are, there's one good way to test it, in my opinion. Go play old school D&D, and you'll know if you want to be here. Anyway, for now, take care. You know what you can do? You can hit the like button. You can share the video. Oh, and there's another button you can press. That one that lets you subscribe to my channel for more content. Oh yeah, there's that bell thing. You can press that so you know when I've uploaded a new video right away.